Welcome again to the Innovation Summit. Today, this is the real summit. Yesterday was a bit of an introduction. So we are going to have more technical stuff today. And yesterday was just to warm you up. Well, it's a big change this year for us, right? All the years so far, we have had the summit in India, in Goa. And here we are in Dubai, and it's, frankly, when you get to this venue, I was first just awestruck by the grandeur of the whole thing and said, oh my God, we have to live up to the promise we are making with all the show that we have put on over here. So I hope that we live up to it. And, it's very interesting that Dubai is a sort of meeting point of the two opposing cultures that form a core DNA of Accion. On one side, we have the US, which is our primary market, and India, which is our primary delivery center. And this is almost like midway between the two. In many ways, geographically midway, but also it's a very interesting amalgam of the two cultures, because here you see the food is a great mixture of both Western cuisine and Indian cuisine, and we still get relatively authentic Indian food here, so it's very comforting. We still have beaches, like in Goa, even though they are man-made, but they're still beaches. So we do have beaches. What else? I think I should mention this, but one important factor for all Indians is the equipment in the bathrooms. Okay. So I think that's another big benefit, that here you have both facilities for Indians and Westerners. I think that helps a great deal for keeping the balance between the cultures, so to say. So let's get started. I think, I am Ash Bijoor, for short. I'd like to consider myself having the sort of inquisitiveness of an adventurer, the pace of a cyclist. I hope I have the creativity of a musician and the rationality of a mathematician of sorts. And I think many of the people who work with me are a little bit frustrated by the mathematician part of me. The Innovation Summit started with an internal event, like Ganesh had mentioned earlier, that we started to get all our senior folks together to discuss the learnings of what we have learned over the year, what are the patterns we see emerging out of all the different work that we have done, and how do they apply across all the different engagements. And I think somewhere in 2016, just by happen chance, one of our customers happened to be visiting India, and he was invited to the summit, and I was saying, why don't you just invite customers as well? We'd like to share this knowledge and experience. And since 2016, we have been inviting customers to this event. This year is really, really special, because for the first time, we have a very large contingent of customers, thanks to probably the venue and the proximity to the rest of the world. We have a lot of customers, not only as attendees. I think over 1/3 of the speakers in this summit are external speakers, and many of them are customers and partners. That's a huge milestone for us, and we really appreciate the kind of engagement and participation that you all have had in preparing for this summit. So this is not an Accion event. This is an event where all of us collaborate and share ideas. And I think it is important that the theme of this summit is really learn from each other. And this is not an educational event of somebody coming on stage and sharing knowledge that others need to know. And so it's very important that the feedback in terms of questions and discussions are a very important part of all the topics that we're going to cover here. Now, the topics The themes are generally aligned to Accion's 4 pillars, which is digital product engineering, data, cloud platforms, and automation. Out of these 4 pillars, the first 2 pillars, which is product engineering and data, have always been a mainstay of Accion's business. And, one of the most important differentiators in Accion is that we started as an emerging technology company, and what that means is that we basically use newer ways of building products and by using the emerging technology. So that enable these new innovations. What we have found is, though we have not strayed away from custom solutions, over the last few years, we have seen that a larger and increasing class of problems can be solved without having to write custom code. So though the solutions are custom solutions, we are seeing that there are platforms which are cloud-based platforms as well as automation solutions, which can be developed as custom solutions, but with less of custom code, which means you are able to get the same kind of solution in a much faster time frame and less effort. And that is why we have this year, for the first time, really differentiated from core product engineering and data solutions. We have separated out 2 additional pillars, which is the cloud platforms and automation. And they represent for us, this recognition that there is a new way of building applications, custom solutions, but by increasingly leveraging cloud platforms. So we did introduce cloud. Cloud is a very integral part of all product engineering because most of the work we do is cloud native applications. So cloud at the infrastructure level has always been around. What we mean by cloud platforms is not just infrastructure, but also services and platform as services which lie on top of it. And that recognition is what we have brought to our actual positioning, that we want to be able to create cloud platforms and automation as serious business for us. In 2019, for the first time, Kinesh introduced the innovation engineering life cycle, which sort of forms the framework which covers all our solutions in all 4 pillars. And the underlying, foundation is emerging technology that has remained so ever since the company was founded. Like I said, we started the summit in 2014 approximately. We are now, I think this is the 9th summit. We missed 1 year in the middle in 2021. The 2020 was an interesting year for us because we had prepared all the content, right? And the last minute, just before the summit date was up for, we were just about to fly to Goa, and then we said, no, we can't afford to just go ahead. We need to cancel the event. So the content was done. All the presentations were ready. And then what we did was all these presentations were shared with Accion over the weekly demos that we have. So the content was always there, but we did not really have the event in 2020. But as far as we are concerned, the sharing of the learning was still there. And so I would still consider that to be a virtual summit rather than not having a summit, but that's how it is. So, like I said, innovation engineering was first introduced in 2019 as a formal structure. And subsequent to that, in all the years, we have, explored various dimensions of innovation engineering. And this year, for the first time, there's significant amount of content around this. We have a session on smart cities, really looking forward to that. Mikunj, our head of healthcare, is going to be talking about accountability, especially in healthcare solutions. Then we are going to talk about various subjects, and I won't cover each subject here because it's going to take me a long time to talk through everything. I'm really excited by all the topics, but I invite you to really look at some of these sessions, and I'll just talk about highlights, subsequent to covering this. So the second one is, of course, product engineering. As you can see, we started with microservices in 2018. It was more the physical part of the engineering. And then we introduced the Breeze Blueprint in 2019, formally, for the first time. We have been talking about re-engineering for quite a bit. Last year especially, we started getting into more higher level patterns of re-engineering, not just a single application, but a portfolio of applications. And I think this year also we have a bit of focus on what we are calling as product portfolio rationalization. And that helps. Many of our customers today are not just single product companies. They have emerged into a portfolio of multiple products, either through acquisitions or homegrown solutions. And one of the things that we do for them is to try and rationalize all of these products together. Data, again, has been our core area of focus. As you can see, there is quite a bit of content every year that we have presented. And this year, I think, again, there's a little bit of meta level in data that we have reached. Karthik is going to be talking about a maturity model in data and analytics, and how do we assess. I think one of the key themes across this whole session for us internally is we are great at the engineering. There's no doubt about it. We wouldn't be successful if we were not great at the engineering. But I think there is in some ways, a democratization of the quality of service across all our projects. I think that's what we are, and many of the sessions we are going to share in this summit are going to really, open some of these skeletons in the cupboard, which you normally don't do in a sales conference, where you're saying, there is not sufficient equity in the adoption of best practices across all our customer engagements. And this is not just our responsibility. This is probably equally, if not more, a responsibility of customers to engage us in their product engineering journeys. Cloud is a new segment for us. You will see that the amount of content is going to be a little low. But the two important platforms we are going to be talking about this year. One is Boomi, which is a new customer partner for us. And we are very, very, very excited about our partnership with Boomi because application integration has become a very, very core part of almost all solutions we build. And you'll see that in the Breeze Blueprint as well, that there's a very important section of integration with applications. And so Boomi becomes a very important part of our overall architectural blueprint. And so does ServiceNow, which has always been, one of our important platforms. And so we still have a demo booth. On both of these have demo booths, so please do visit them. And lastly, automation, which is, of course, without doubt, an integral part of all our digital solutions. But this year, we are going a little bit beyond the traditional DevOps automation and containerized development and things like that. And really exploring, and thanks to Shoaib about talking about hyper-automation. What does that mean? How does that really extend the envelope of automation? How do we manage test data? And then a new dimension automation for us is user testing automation. So we're going to be talking about user testing automation as well, and automation of IAM configurations. I think Raghu is one of our experts on that, and he's going to share some of his work in that. Emerging tech is, all of us are techies. We really love new technology. And I know all of us have been excited by ChatGPT, so we cannot not talk about ChatGPT. So we do have to talk about that. We have to talk about large language models and generative AI for sure. And what is the real impact? And the reason we have kept this in emerging tech and not in data is because we still recognize that this is a relatively new space. It may not be as far out in the future as we think it is. It's just hitting us every day today, and we'll see that. But I think there is, Ramesh is going to be talking a very interesting topic about what is the impact of these new AI tools on digital skills, which forms a very, very important part of our business. All of us are dependent highly on digital skills, and how does AI really impact that? Does it mean that we're going to go out of business? We don't need developers anymore? What impact does it have? Ramesh is going to be talking about that. Of course, we'll talk a little more about understanding generative AI and LLMs. And then Shahid, who heads our blockchain and decentralized applications, he's going to be talking about a little bit interoperability between smart contracts. So far, everybody knows about smart contracts, but if there are multiple platforms, how do you create interoperability between them? So these are all the topics in this summit. All the topics are listed in the agenda, so please do go through them. And if you are interested in exploring any one of them and discussing them, don't wait for the session, just reach out to them directly through the app. So the two important highlights I want to cover here. One is this whole rapid evolution of data and AI. Without doubt, we have seen the impact of ChatGPT, but the favorite science fiction author of mine, Asimov, I think some of you who are in my age group will know Asimov. In 1956, he wrote a story which was called The Last Question. He talked about a supercomputer, which was an intergalactic computer, which spanned not only the Earth, but all the planets around. It was a self-adjusting, self-correcting computer. It was fed tons and tons of data, and it could answer any question. This was written in 1956, okay? And today, it's almost real. It's fascinating to see that just, by the way, he predicted that 2060 is when we are going to have that computer, which can answer any question. And today we are in 2024, and we already have a semblance of what he imagined at that time. And I asked this question to ChatGPT, why should I answer this question? How is Asimov's last question almost real with generative AI and large language models? And this is what it answered. Oops. I think my audio is not playing from your laptop, Relton. Never mind, but you can read this. You can see that, this entire answer was provided by ChatGPT.
A super intelligent computer capable of answering any question and ultimately solving the problem of entropy. 2. Advances in generative AI and large language models have brought us closer to realizing this concept, as they have enabled computers to generate and process vast amounts of information, making them more intelligent and capable of answering increasingly complex questions. 3. While we may not yet have a fully functioning multivac, like in Asimov's story, the development of advanced AI technologies has brought us closer to achieving the kind of intelligence and problem-solving abilities once only imagined in science fiction.
This is uncanny, right? That this whole answer was provided by ChatGPT, but by a simple question that I asked. The illustration is done by DALL-E, right? So the entire slide has been actually created with just one input from me of asking this question and saying, how do you see this parallel between Asimov's story and real life today? That's what really represents, where we are standing today. I think it's exciting. It's scary on one hand because it's going to need us to really reinvent ourselves. I think I'm really looking forward to Ramesh's session where he questions what are we supposed to do with this. It's not just business, but as individuals, how does it impact us as technologists? So we have a lineup of different topics around this overall theme. Like I said, Karthik is going to be talking about data maturity. We have Ramesh talking about the evolution of digital skills. Tarun, who heads the Azure data practice, and Padmavati are going to talk about data mesh, which is a re-emergence of decentralized data analytics. Chetan is going to delve a little deeper into the generative AI and large language models. Bhushan from EZest is going to be talking about knowledge graphs. Graph database, one of my favorite subjects, because one of the first solutions when I started a big data company was using graph databases. So it's very, very close to my heart, and so I had a chat with Bhushan over breakfast today, and we were sharing ideas on graph databases. Spark, has become almost an industry standard for all big data processing. And we are questioning, there's so many alternatives to Spark. Is it really losing its sparkle or not? And that's the question that DC and Sanket are going to explore for us. And Vaibhav, who heads the CEO of App Orchid, is going to really present a platform that we have built together with them, which has a very interesting way of looking at enterprise scale AI by using Q&A model of easy answers. So really, really great lineup that we have here. The second highlighting theme or topic here is what we are calling as pathology of digital product engineering. Now, the reason, we talked about Breeze, digital product engineering, the best of digital product engineering in Accion is incorporated in Breeze. What Breeze represents is best practices in terms of how do you architect a solution, how do you make sure that the process is using the best of the best, using open source and cloud and all of that put together. And you'll see that this represents 80 to 90% of the work we do is built using this blueprint. Almost every customer, your architecture will align in some ways to Breeze if you're working with Accion. But the level of adoption of the blueprint is still different across different customers. And there's one topic that we are going to cover there. But the point is this. In this entire innovation engineering life cycle, if you look at it, we either build new products, or we re-engineer a single product, or we rationalize a portfolio of products. And this is a typical cycle that we follow of saying, okay, we take the existing product or an existing idea, and we first work on the strategy and roadmap, we build a solution design, we create a work stream planning of, how do we execute it, how many teams, what kind of skill sets, what's the release plan, what's the SDLC. Then we start the actual implementation in terms of agile development and release. And then once it is released, every release you have support and analytics to be able to analyze how the product is performing. So what we have got right in the innovation engineering lifecycle is we have got strategic alignment to business objectives. We are able to capture clear requirements. We are able to ensure functional completeness because we have tested, we have got functional testing incorporated, we have got performance testing incorporated, so engineering quality is checked. Architectural maturity, thanks to Breeze, we have got, most customers know where they are heading. From UX perspective, we follow best practice in terms of design systems, so that's also covered. Engineering efficiency in terms of SDLC, best practices in Agile, great. Data and user analytics, brilliant. Okay, why is it that despite all of this, not every product is successful in the market? So it's not just a question of building great products. Proof of the pudding is if users are going to accept these products. And I think the big question, therefore, for us is we are lacking in terms of a good framework for user acceptance tests. Now, in the industry today, user acceptance testing is done by only human beings. It means you need to get a bunch of people to come into your room and then observe how they're using your applications. And this is an extremely expensive proposition. And if we asked our question about how many of our customers are actually doing user acceptance testing, it's a pathetically low number. Okay, so we are highly dependent on our intuitions and our beliefs. So though we say our strategic alignment is expected to be aligned to our users' needs, that's not necessarily true. There could be a gap between those. So I think we really ask this question to ourselves and saying, how do we make sure that we cover the risks of not having to do an expensive user acceptance testing and still get the same benefits, at least to a certain extent? So the first thing is, how do we quantify what is being measured as part of user acceptance testing? Can we quantify it in the first place? And if we do quantify it, can we quantify from a user experience perspective, from an architectural perspective, from technical benefits? And ultimately, what we would like to do is, before we do the surgery, we want to do the pathology, right? We are great at the surgery. We claim to be the best, but we are not really doing pathology. And so that's the area that we really want to express. So if you look at the kind of user challenges, all users want more features, right? So the more you give, the more they want, right? Similarly, they just keep changing their minds all the time. You give them one set of features, they're going to come back and say, this is not really working for me, and they keep changing their minds. The third is, of course, whatever you do, they're going to have psychological barriers in using your products. These are the three types of complexities that have been created by a framework, management framework called theory of constraints. I don't know how many of you are familiar with theory of constraints, but as part of TOC, there are three types of complexities defined: substance complexity, dynamic complexity, and psychological complexity. Substance complexity represents the user's need for more features all the time. Dynamic complexity represents the change of features, the continuous change of features. And psychological complexity is the psychological barriers of emotional and psychological needs of users. And the problem is that the complex ability to handle complexity of users' needs is embedded deeply in our products. So users' needs are dependent directly on the user interface. The user interface is dependent on the architecture. The architecture is dependent on our APIs and the data models. The technology stack we use impacts everything we do. And of course, the process we follow to develop products impacts everything we do. So you can see that complexity is not a mere matter of measuring, getting users into a room and asking these questions of, is it working for you or not? How do we take a root cause analysis of what the user is giving feedback and tie it to some parts of this entire puzzle? So it's not just a matter of measurement, it is also having an understanding of what are the capabilities of different parts of our architecture to be able to address some of these complexities that we need. And so what we are trying to come up with is a methodology to measure and manage the complexity of each layer of our applications to address the complexity of users' needs. So how we would like to do this is, we want to be able to create a quantified set of complexity metrics. And we want to be able to create a pathology test which says, you give me your application, pass it to our pathology department, right? And they're going to not look at your code. They don't need your code. They're just going to look at it from a user's perspective, because user doesn't have code, right? So if you want to be able to simulate user testing, you should be able to do that with a working product, not by analyzing code. Okay, so if we are able to get quantified complexity metrics of user experience, the impact of architectural models, the impact of data models, and the impact of technical debt, then we should be able to repeat this in various phases of the innovation engineering life cycle, so that we are able to not only quantify, but we are able to measure the gap areas. Let's say a new product comes, you want to re-engineer it. What are specifically the gap areas that you want to cover? People say, I want to improve the usability of my application. What does that mean in quantified terms? I want my architecture to be more scalable. What exactly does it mean? I want it to be more flexible. And, all of us are techies and we like, and I was just talking to our internal folks, and we are no better than the fashion industry, right? Everybody wants microservices because that's the fad. Okay, what's the real logic behind wanting to do microservices and taking on the additional burden that all of us know the microservices are way more complex to be able to build than a monolithic architecture? But we still say no. Startup, Sriram yesterday was telling me of a customer who came to us, startup company, no funding. See, we want to create a microservices, containerized deployment. I said, no, that's the way you need to start, because that's the best practice. So I think that's a question we want to be able to ask and say, how do we quantify decisions that we take, in the architecture, in the user experience, in the data, how do we make it real and not just based on hype? We don't want to be like the fashion industry and have, the latest fad becoming the justification for our architectural decisions and design decisions. So I think that's the real, skeletons in the cupboard for all of us that we need to expose and really question ourselves and saying, are we taking the right decisions and do we have the right metrics to define these metrics? So there's a series of subjects that we are going to cover along this. I won't steal the thunder of any of those speakers, but basically that's the two main themes of this summit. I'm just going to cover quickly the demo booths and the panels. There are several demo booths that are outside, so please do visit each one of them. Some of them, like Boomi and ServiceNow and Accion and so on, are also speakers, so you will actually get to hear some of them and then see their demos, but there are others who have demo booths which are not necessarily speakers. So please, in the breaks, do visit them and check out what those demos are about. So we have digital accessibility, we have backendless applications, we have ServiceNow, we have Boomi. This is a voice assistant for ServiceNow. Nexial is our low-code automation platform. Passage 3D, our first metaverse product. Thanks, Keith, for coming here. Keith is our very, very dear friend and customer who is developing a very exciting metaverse application called Passage 3D, and that's being demoed, so don't miss that. Excel to Web is a tool that is developed by eZest, and they are going to demo that. We, of course, have an AR/VR demo. We can't not have that in any of our summits, so we do have that as well. This one topic that is part of the whole managing complexity, very close to the user interface is, very close to the user's needs is user interface. I think Vaibhav, who heads our UI development, is going to be talking about finite state machines and how you can use finite state machines to model complex user interfaces. And there's a demo of that platform as well. So please do check that out as well. We have 3 panel discussions. The first panel discussion at the end of the day today, which is conducted by Tom. And he's going to be really exploring about how does the emerging tech impact all our businesses. So I know we are going to share a lot of ideas here about emerging tech, but I think we would like to hear from you, panelists, on what is the actual benefit. And though the panels members are going to be on the stage, the entire audience is expected to participate in terms of participating in the discussion. So please do actually start asking questions for the panelists. The second panel is tomorrow, just before lunch, chaired by Sameer Kanwar. And he is going to be exploring about what is innovation. We keep saying innovation engineering. So what is actually innovation? How do you make sure that innovation becomes a part of your DNA of your organization? So that's the second panel. And the third panel is chaired by Anand Raja. And he's going to be talking about true value. The end of all of this sessions is, are we really spending money and getting value? Or is it, again, just a matter of fashion? So I think that's the question that Anand and his panel are going to explore. So again, I repeat, please do use the app for collaboration and asking questions. The basic guidelines should be pretty straightforward. I think all of us build applications, and so there's no rocket science in how this application works. So please do use that. That's about it. Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to all the sessions that are going to come. I know there should not be too many questions for me because this is just an introduction to all the themes. The actual content is going to come from the speakers themselves. So I'm going to use 5 minutes to give you that 5 minutes to stretch yourself and be ready for a barrage of sessions for the rest of the day. I kept my time. So my request is all the speakers, please keep an eye out on that and be on time. Happy to interact with all of you during the sessions. Please do visit the demo booths. Please participate in the panels. Thank you.
Ash, we have two questions for you. I'm here.
Okay.
Ash, I'm here.
Where are you?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Okay. So the first question is, in the agile world, many organizations such as banks are looking for user acceptance testing to increase the project SDLC cycle. So what, from your perspective, can be done to certify the product from end user experience standpoint, but not adding a separate cycle?
Not adding?
A separate cycle.
Yeah, that's the key question, right? The problem of user acceptance testing is that currently the best practice of user acceptance testing is to be calling human beings into the room. And that is not it's not a process you can automate. Okay, and in today's SDLC, anything you can't automate cannot be implemented. It can only be implemented as a post-mortem of your release. It's already too late to make decisions. So what's the big benefit of having to, do a post-mortem of your product and then say, oh, in the next release, we'll take care of it. Are you serious? We're talking about CI/CD and we're talking about continuous releases, and you're waiting till your release is out in the market before you know what users are going to say about you? I don't think that's acceptable. So I'm not going to really answer this question because the theme of pathology is to answer that question. And I will not be able to answer that question in a few minutes because we are going to actually spend close to 3 to 4 hours of this summit exploring that topic a little more. And I'll probably, I'm hoping that you'll get some part of the answers in those sessions, and I'm happy to come back if necessary at the end and re-look at this question because this is going to be one very important question for us to answer as a part of the summit.
Sure, Ash. Next one is on requirements. So do you believe that quantification of requirements and user needs will lead us to be able to automate the UAT process?
I think the requirements are a bad way to describe business objectives. Because when you document user stories, they're an interpretation of what users need. And it's not necessarily accurate. So what we can do, and that's what we are good at, is saying, if you tell me what is the user story, I can make sure that your objectives are met. If you want the software to do X, I will make sure that it does X. Not only I'll make sure it does X, I can prove to you that it does X. And that's automation testing, right? But quantification of users' needs is a different ball game, right? I don't think any one of us have really figured out how to predict what users need. And that's why we are in this business, because we rely on the fact that we don't know, and then we continuously keep working on the products. And if we could somehow magically predict what users need, it would have been, we'd be out of business after we finish the product. So I think quantification is certainly required, but I don't know to what extent user quantification. Requirement quantification, absolutely there. Automation testing, well-established methodology to be able to make sure that functional completeness is there.